So
Yeah.
it's forgiving ourselves if we're not great in the practical world and having the confidence to know that that's just where we should be.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, to let love in.
Hello, my name's Naranjan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast. Learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 167, and I had the pleasure of talking to Dr. Ron, a retired pediatrician from Dartmouth faculty who spent over 40 years witnessing love's power and the pain of the feeling of being unloved. Now he shares his approach to embracing love for happier, more meaningful lives, helping audiences transform through his deep insight and awareness generated in his entire life and career. Enjoy this conversation and thank you for watching and listening. Hello and welcome to Ron. How are you, Ron?
I'm very well, thank you. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again too. I'm excited to get into this conversation just as we were kind of setting up here. We were getting into some of those pieces of conversation and I kind of had to halt us there because I wanted to be able to capture it on video for everybody else to share and learn from as well. So thank you for that. And
Great.
um, I appreciate you taking the time for this conversation and I'm equally excited to be here and to share this space with you to be able to uncover your lessons and learnings and your ahas and come into some sort of a synergy, if you will, of what you've learned, what I've learned, and hopefully people who are listening to this can learn from it as well and take away something for it for their journey on this thing called life, which is just a blip at the end of the day. But yeah,
And when you
I'm
talk
excited.
about synergy, while you were saying all that, I was getting goosebumps up and down my
Ah.
back.
Very good. Yes. So perhaps that's an element of truth. There's whatever that means for you is what it is because people will relate to physical sensations to their body to different things. The meaning to that word, to that feeling, will lean into different um, meanings, the meanings that we give it. So I was going to say it's potentially a truth, but it's whatever meaning you give it. For me, it's truth. But so, all right, so I'm going to start off with a really bold question of what do you believe about yourself and does it define Ron in who he is at this moment of time?
Well, it's very interesting. I was thinking about that question, and if I can, there are several ways to look at it.
Absolutely.
One is there was a great rabbi in a story by a Martin Buber, who's a Jewish mystic and educator.
Right.
And in this story, he talked to somebody who felt frustrated with his life. And imagine that person's name was Alan. And he said to this Alan, he said, at the end of life, God doesn't want to know why you weren't Moses. God wants to know why you weren't Alan.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And
very good.
um, and so at some point in life, through outer circumstances, I had to discover what it was that I believed in,
Mhm.
what I really knew. And if I took away everything that I learned, everything that I read, everything everybody else taught me, and I was only left with what do I know?
Mhm.
And what I came to appreciate is the power and importance of love in human life.
Mhm.
And so then if I take this entity of love, and you add to that that we also have a rational intellect that's along with it, just in the same way you have a right foot and a left foot, and you use them equally,
Right.
then it's a matter of how do I meet each situation with my most rational, intelligent being, and also my most loving, intuitive, and sensitive being.
Mhm.
So a different way I thought of that is suppose you were a musician.
Mhm.
On the one hand, you want to be accomplished with your instrument so you can play it in all kinds of situations and play it well. But there are some situations where the job is to meld in, to be part of a group, to develop harmony. In
Mhm.
other situations, you do a solo. In some situations, you support the other people. In some, you have a lead, and it's all, so that's life. It's really so how are we at our best in every situation?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
so I
how did you end up defining that for you? Because you've been through a number of trajectory of career paths and experiences. So what was the silver lining for you in all that experiences that you've had?
That's a great question. I don't even know how I could answer it. One is the path of my life. It's just
Mhm.
so interesting how the way I was as a child fits in with how I am now.
Mm.
When I was a kid, I lived in an apartment complex in New York, and my next door neighbor was someone who I just connected with, and it was just great being together. And then he moved away in third grade.
Right.
We went to visit him once and then never saw him again.
Mm.
And then I had to learn how to play with the other kids in my neighborhood.
Right.
And there was nobody that I had that connection with. And
Mm.
what I had to learn how to do is how do I play with this kid? And how do I play with that kid? And I was of such a mind where I didn't take any of it personally. It was just
Right.
like, if how do I play with them? So I remember there was one kid who his hobby was plastic car models. And so he'd get
Okay.
this box of things and he'd kind of snap them together and put
Yeah.
decals. And I
Yeah.
could play with him that day. But I thought to myself, this is so uninteresting. I don't want to do this a lot.
Okay. Yes.
And then at other times I met people that I really connected with. And
Mm.
and so when I was in my practice as a pediatrician, I was a pediatrician for 40 years. And I thought to myself, and so in each situation, it was how do I be appropriate here?
Mm.
On the one hand, I had to practice good pediatrics. But
Right.
I also had to say, how do I talk to this person who's very demanding and has a good deal of cynicism? How do I let them know that I know what's going on, this is what I'm thinking?
Mm.
And then there's somebody else and who would have a totally different approach and attitude. They'd be more laissez-faire and they were into the outdoors. And how do I let them know that I really got their situation in hand? I really hear them.
Yeah.
And so that was the story of my life. Like, how do I be appropriate in every setting as best I can be?
Yeah. Yeah. It's ultimately about communication and reading into the other person's language or um, communication style, I guess, really, as it's defined now, communication skills and style, and how to relate to other people, be it
Yeah,
from the words that they say, the facial gestures, and all that physical component, which is a bigger portion of how we read other people more so versus the words that they say.
yeah.
So all of those nuances really heightened for you, I
Yeah.
guess.
And it's so interesting. A group of friends, a couple, who really are fairly depressed. And they've
Mm,
always been that way. And they're people I'm close with. When I go to see them, I have to
mm,
drop being happy.
mm.
I have to really be at their level. I don't lose myself, but it's really a matter of listening, a matter of being appropriate to them. It's about letting them know that I'm there for them. And through that, then they can ask me some questions because they start to feel like he's with us, he's got our back, he trusts us, he likes us.
Right. And then do you lift your
Uh,
mood and your
um,
energy a little bit?
well, so I have to work it out in various ways. So one way, if I'm visiting for a while, is I get up early in the morning and go to the beach. I live
Right.
near the beach. Or I'll get up early in the morning, go for a bike ride. And I just
Right.
figure out how do I feed my own self if I
Yeah.
need to.
Yeah. Because often what I find is when we get into those places, when we consciously drop our energy level and our base level state, and we go below base level, it's harder for us to get out, but then we're also potentially doing a disservice to the other people that you were with. Because
That's right.
perhaps, Rob, perhaps you being in their life is an opportunity for you to lift them up.
Exactly. And part of the way of doing that is by listening and being there for someone. Just that
Mhm,
alone, and
mhm.
not judging them, appreciating who they are, and so on.
Yeah.
So it's something like I could, again, if I use that musical analogy, I
Hmm.
could be this big, bold bass, but
Yes.
then there's a part of this music where it's about being quiet and plucking the strings ever so lightly. I don't
Yes.
lose my being a bass. I just play it in a different way because that's what the situation calls for. If I decided,
Yeah.
no, I'm playing it my way, it wouldn't fit.
Yes. Or yes, and if you was to have the bass, but you didn't string, I guess, the string that wasn't the loudest but quietest, but did that on a level where it still rippled out
Yeah,
and had a shift of what the feeling is in the room, how they the presence of their become more aware of their own presence
yeah.
is I
And
guess
then
what I'm
what's
getting at.
fascinating also is that we then have the ability to later go back and reflect.
Hmm.
Say, did it work the way, the way I set it up and what I did? Did that
Right.
work? So
Right.
if I tried to play a little bit more boldly, how'd that work out?
Yeah. Yeah. And this has been a trajectory through your entire life, right? So, um, being, if I dare to say, a chameleon of some sort, of matching other people with their energy, with their mood, with their receptivity of the dialogue and the narrative that they want to hear to a certain degree, to be able to support them in whatever the way that looks like, be it the pediatric place or be it as a parent, as a partner, as a friend, all of that. So it's merging with others to have them have an experience with them.
Yeah. And the word chameleon is it's sometimes how I think of myself, at least in my early stages, because
Mm,
then there was no consciousness behind it.
yeah,
So at one point I was a school teacher
yeah,
and I worked in an inner city in Brooklyn, an inner city school, and then a private school on Long Island.
ah,
And then I'd been in school my whole life. I decided I just wanted to live in nature for a while. And I ended up
mm,
getting a job in a logging camp in Alaska, in the Alaskan wilderness. And there I had to fit in each of those situations. I had to fit in.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
so interesting. That's how my life has been.
It
But
is.
then I came to this, when I really thought of this later, I came to an insight that is the greatest insight that I've had, and really the reason that I left my practice to write a book.
Hmm.
I realized that we think in two ways. One way is with our intellect, that's the normal facts and figures and rational things we do,
Hmm.
but we also think with our hearts.
Yeah.
When we think with our hearts, the way I think of it is it's when we, through the door of love, we meet another, and we ask, how does that person see the world in this
Mm-hmm.
moment?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do I serve them?
Yeah.
And also from the space of love, I realized that this thing of love is universal.
Mm.
It's uplifting, it's of the heart, it's the heart's love, and it's universal. It crosses cultures, it crosses time. You can recognize it in the art of ancient people. And it's as real as anything physical. If you dropped a boulder off a cliff, it would crush any stone that it fell on.
Yeah.
If you don't feel loved and don't feel worthy of love, then it crushes your
Mm.
psyche.
That's right.
It's absolutely real. And so in the world, both of those give us satisfaction. There's some physical things we do. Let's say you
Hmm.
setting up your podcast, getting the staging right, the recording right. You
Hmm.
want to get all that right. And
Hmm.
so the physical things we do, we feel good about. It might be cooking breakfast for someone. And then the other side is feeling I'm loved, not because of
Yeah.
anything that I do, but I'm primordial loved, like I'm filled with love. And when you have
Right.
those two, you feel good about what you're doing on the outside, and you feel loved. Then you have a great life.
Yeah. But it's also coming into an awareness of feeling that love for yourself.
That's right. One of the other things that I saw as a pediatrician was the delightfulness in a 6-month-old smile.
Mm.
When they smile and laugh, the whole world smiles and laughs with them.
Mm.
And they're just filled with love.
Yeah.
We were all that 6-month-old. We can
Yeah.
still tap into that.
Mm. And it's as an adult, with life experiences. We all have them. We're supposed to have them. That's why we're here. That's part of the journey, is to have these challenges and these pull-push relationships and conversations and experiences in this thing called life. We ultimately end up coming back, or perhaps the opportunity is for us to ultimately come back to our own heart.
Yeah, that's it. So if you use that walking analogy again, all those things you described is, say, walking on your right foot. We also
Hmm.
need to get back to your center so you strengthen that left leg so that doesn't atrophy.
Right, right. But also, to the point that you made earlier in the conversation about we navigate life from our mind, the structural piece, but the 6 month old was navigating life from the heart.
That's it. And so we do both of those. So if you go into that 6-month-old and you're going
Mhm,
to play with that 6-month-old, then you
mhm,
start making funny faces and Googling and
mhm,
making him
mhm.
laugh. That's not an intellectual concept. It's you're just
That's right.
present in the moment and listening inwardly to the 6-month-old.
Yeah. But how do we go about life? And maybe this is a natural process that you have embarked on, is having the coherence between the heart and the mind. Because there's studies done out there, it's a proven technique, the mind and the heart coherence, to have them work in tandem and in synergy. So as individuals out here, there is a sense of balance, there is a sense of coming home to self and to your own heart, and not being in a place of dependency,
Yeah,
waiting to have love from somebody else, or waiting until you to feel worthy of it
yeah,
with the validation of others. And
yeah.
all of those external pieces that we have in life that we've grown to show, be it social media, like whatever that looks like, but something external to validate us, but rather
Well,
having the validation to
this
ourselves
heart
from our.
center, this heart center is not only about the love that you get from people, it's about a transcendent love.
Yeah,
It's about a spiritual love.
yeah.
And that's something we can open to. It's interesting where if you want to get better at a physical task,
Hmm.
you can figure out how to do it and take the steps. So if you want to
Yes,
physically fit or become a great chef
sure.
or who knows
Yeah.
what, to increase our sense of love, we do it differently. There, it's more like making room for it, opening to it. So it's
Hmm.
like cleaning a window and letting the sunlight come in.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so there it's spending the time, it's knowing that it's there and it's opening to it and yeah, and welcoming it in and working with it.
Yeah. How did you know, be it from learning to play with the kid who plays with plastic cars to maybe even this morning's activities, that a part of your call, what is part of your calling in life?
It's
From
so
way
interesting.
back when you was then to where you are now to what you did
Yeah.
this morning.
Yeah, I don't know that I could put words on it, but let me describe what's going on for me now.
Hmm.
So after 40 years in pediatrics, I decided
Hmm.
to write a book. So I wrote a book that's called Bigger Hearted, a
Hmm.
retired pediatrician's prescriptions for living a happier life.
Beautiful.
And I loved my pediatric practice, and I thought
Yeah.
I would never retire. And one day I realized I had knew what I wanted to write, and I said, "Okay, it's over. It's time to become a teacher of that."
Wow.
So I wrote this book, and then I never knew the whole time I was writing it whether it was really simply for my own learning and growth or if it was for
Mm-hmm.
anybody else. I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt I should keep doing it. And then once it got published, then I thought I need to kind of support it. If I want it out there, I should
Sure.
support it.
Mm-hmm.
And people gave me incredible testimonials how much they liked it. One person said I
Mm-hmm.
cried, another one said, "How did you know me?" and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, if people like it, then I should get it out there. And
Yes.
so at any rate, the reason I started this long story is then I said, okay, I should have a web presence.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in the process of my web page getting developed. And then I always thought I wanted to do workshops. I wanted to teach.
Sure.
And I thought I'd do workshops on the book on how do you incorporate these things. So
Right.
the other days I sat down, I thought, okay, I could do one on that. And then I realized through some other circumstances, I should work with doctors who feel burnt out.
Mhm.
I love being a physician.
Mhm.
But we don't get taught the interactive part. We don't get the
Yes.
taught opening to people part. So I could teach
Yeah.
that 'cause I think that's the cornerstone of being burnt out. And
Nice.
somebody had me on his podcast who works with veterans who are suffering from
Mm.
PTSD. And I had some thoughts about that. And I thought, okay, so I'm going to give free workshops to veterans in overcoming
Mm.
PTSD. And I'm going
Yeah.
to do workshops for doctors in overcoming burnout. And I'm going to do some for
Mm.
parents on parenting and some for people that want to go to
Beautiful.
the book. And so
Beautiful.
just these things happen. And I have no idea where it's going to go.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
I open one page and then it's like, oh, this is where you should go now. And I have no
Yeah.
idea what's going to happen.
Yeah. And that's the exciting part, right?
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's learning, it's growing, it's seeing if what I do rings a bell, and if it does,
Yeah.
let me keep doing it. So I have no idea where it's at.
Yeah.
I could be selling hot dogs on the street sometime next year. I have no idea.
Somehow I doubt that, but as long as there's that 6 month old curiosity
Yeah,
and fun and excitement that goes along with it, then I think it's going to be a beautiful experience for sure, for
yeah.
sure, for sure.
I hope so. I think so. And another thing I realized is that, and this I saw through my childhood, one of the reasons that we're not like that 6 month old, first we had to develop
Mhm.
our intellect and we had to be
Of
able
course.
to see the
Yes.
world critically. But the other one is so many people have gotten um, devastated by early childhood experiences
Mhm.
where they
Mhm.
had challenges in their childhood. So I dedicate a chapter to that for how do you overcome
Mhm.
that? How do you start?
Mhm.
And so that one of the things that gets in the way of being that 6 month old is feeling you're unworthy, you're not lovable,
Yeah.
and so on. And all that is false.
Yeah.
So really is getting rid of that part. And yeah, and learning that no, we are worthy of love and we are loved. We're filled with love.
But it's been in relationship with it. So it's been in relationship. I equate this as being in relationship with a 6 month old. We're both adults. How can I be in relationship with my 6-year-old, 6 month old self to give it the support, the guidance, the wisdom, but most importantly, the adult version of the 6 month old self, the love and the support. So it feels the safety. And within that safety and trust and truth and no judgment,
Yeah.
then it can be in a place of not being as visible in the adult as we go through life.
Say that last part again.
So it wouldn't become as visible emotionally as an adult as we go through life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our
That's right.
childhood experiences will always show up as an adult,
Yeah.
but we need to recognize that that's what it is and go back to that version of ourselves
Yeah.
and hold it with tender, with love, with compassion, and no judgment, because to anybody, be it the parent, the caregiver, the sibling, the teacher, whomever it is, removing that judgment is the biggest battle.
Yeah. Now,
And
the reason that it's worth not fighting isn't the right word, but the reason it's worth it to go through that battle is because when you get to that place, that's when you have life's richest experiences. So when you're playing
absolutely.
with that 6 month old, it's great. When you have a great connection with a friend, that's
Yeah.
great. When you meet
Yeah.
somebody else, that's great. So it's not something that we have to struggle to do. It's to say, let me get the filters off that stop me from living there.
That's right. But the pain and the challenge of what that 6 month has felt is burdensome to the adult.
How do you mean?
It comes up through relationship, through trust, feeling abandoned, feeling hurt, an element of grief, or whatever that pain or that version of that trauma looks like for that child,
Yeah.
it's going to show up. And it'll
And so
show up in relationships most of the time, right?
that's right. So that's where we have our inner work to do, and again,
That's
that's what I
right.
described in my book.
That,
So on the one
yes.
hand, a thing that I realized is that, well, what I saw, my mom was someone who had incredible insecurity that
Mm,
lasted until she was 95
mm,
because of the way she was raised as a child.
mhm, mhm,
And as a kid, I did two things. One is I could appreciate who she was and how she was. And I thought, I've got to protect myself from it. And I knew as a kid I had to
mm,
protect myself from it, so it didn't let it get to me. And I knew she loved me. But on the other hand, I always wondered, why does this last? And
mm,
I've seen in other people, I think, why does this last your
mm,
whole lifetime? And I think the way I looked at it and the way is that when we get abused, whether physically, emotionally, sexually, in any way,
mm.
most of the time the immature child's psyche can't handle it.
Yeah,
And the way it manages it is by agreeing with the thought of what they say about me is true and
that's
the way
right.
they treat me is valid.
That's
So
right.
we end up feeling we're unloved and we're unlovable.
Yeah. And
Now
we're
the truth
unworthy
is,
of it.
yeah.
Mhm,
Now the
mhm, mhm.
truth is that is simply false.
It is.
So yeah, because the reason, so for an example, for a bold example, there was a woman that I met once at a gym in San Francisco when I was going to a conference, and somehow she was just telling me her story. And she had just gotten back from a drug and alcohol rehab center where she stayed for a while.
Mm,
And then she went on to tell me that she had the potentially the best life in the world.
okay.
She was a tennis player, ran a tennis center, and it was great.
Wow.
The problem that happened when she was a child, her parents were alcoholics, and they told her that she was worthless. They wished they never had her, and
Mm,
that she was unworthy of anything.
mhm.
So that was really hard for her.
Yeah.
She realized at some point the only way that she could get out of that situation was through working hard in school and developing her tennis skills.
Right.
And she got the scholarship she hoped for, and life was great. And then she had a boyfriend who drank a lot,
Mm,
and she ended up drinking with him. And then all
mm.
these ghosts of the past of I'm unlovable,
That's right.
I'm unworthy, all came flooding her.
Yeah.
And so the real deal is the way of real curing is knowing that her parents said that out of their problems.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with her. So
That's
one of the
right.
processes is to say, wait, if I'm in a car wreck, the first thing I have to do is get the body out of the car wreck.
Mm,
So that those lies I've got to stop.
yeah.
I've got to realize it's not true.
Yeah.
If somebody abused me, it wasn't because of me. They had problems. They
Yeah.
were an adult. They should have known better. If somebody spent their life yelling, it's because they had problems. It wasn't because of me.
Mm,
They should have known better. And so one part is freeing ourselves that way, and then the second part is forgiving ourselves and refilling ourselves with love.
that's right. That's
And
right.
and I describe how to do that. One of the things that we don't do that occurred to me is we don't spend time working on ourselves.
Mm,
What I mean by that is if you play a sport, did you ever
mhm.
play any sports as a kid?
Not really, but I understand. I know where you're
Or you
going with this.
dance or
Yeah.
do any creative
Yeah.
activities?
Yeah. Yes, I
Whatever it
do.
is you do, you practice. There are two parts. You practice, suppose you're a
Yeah.
dancer, you do all your dance
Exactly.
exercises, and then you dance.
Hmm,
They're
hmm.
two completely separate things.
That's right.
So we live our lives, we don't spend the reflective time thinking about practicing. How do we get better at this thing? How do we heal these wounds?
Right.
And so I developed something I call focused inner listening, where we take that
Mm,
time and we can do it while we're in bed and we can't fall asleep. And yeah,
yeah.
so it really is taking the time to really learn how do I get better at this?
Yeah. Yeah. And the add on to that, which is what I'm hearing, which is a practice that I also teach too, is bringing the awareness to the physical body. Because when there is trauma and when there is a repeat and when we have our ghosts from our past come back and visit us, it puts us all in our head. And in that space, then we navigate life from here. So, how do we transform that and move it to bringing the awareness into the heart, but also to be cognizant and aware of feeling my little toe.
Yeah.
So bring the awareness into the body so you can be in relationship with it, because that's where the trauma is stored.
Yeah.
And then being able to transform the energy that's stored in the physical body, because we're made of energy, and move through it that way.
Yeah. And
This
heal
is
it too, to know that we're not alone and to be able to say, listen, God, that's not me. Let
right.
me fill myself with you a little bit, because
Yeah,
that's really what puts that aside. Like, I know
that's right.
that that wasn't my fault. Let me, instead of living in that, I acknowledge it, I fully experience it, it's fully
Yes,
there. And at the
yes.
same time, let me heal it.
And that's the important piece, right? Because often we can get into a place of being in pain and recognizing that it's trauma. And you probably saw this as a doctor too, that it's happened, it's done, and you're just gonna box it away. You're going to put it away and pretend it never even happened, and you're just going to go on through life. But that box filled of pain and the trauma is still sitting there.
That's
We
right.
need
It
to
doesn't
sift through
work.
it. We've got to go through
Yeah,
that space in order to be able to heal it. But I think there's a lot, and I would call that a spiritual bypassing, because it's a greater lesson there. And I think there's a lot of people, and there's a bigger narrative out there that says it's okay to do that. That toxic positive psychology, if you will, which I think is toxic. I don't think it's very um, correct way of doing it. So seeing that somebody's in an emotional state that isn't positive, then disregarding it and just flipping the switch and being positive doesn't work. You got to
no,
address all the
no.
emotions that are showing up. We get this beautiful gift called life to have these expressive emotions. So we got to go through it.
Yeah, and that's right. That's right. Because if we don't, as you said, we're really not dealing with it. It's
Yeah,
something like a way I think about it is it's kind of the filter that we buried in our subconscious or unconscious that we
yeah,
see the world through.
that's
If
right.
that filter is still there, and as long as it's there, we're not going to feel any different than
Yeah.
whether we try to avoid it or not. But on
So
the
what
other
what
hand, I was going to say, when you think of the spiritual aspect, an image
mm-hmm,
that came to me is imagine here's your little kid who's like 8 years old or 5 years
mm-hmm,
old, and they hurt themselves.
mm-hmm.
And they give you the hand that they hurt, and you kiss the boo boo,
Yes,
and the boo boo goes away. And then they can
yes,
go back and play.
yes,
So that's our connecting with the spiritual. It's really connecting with the parents' love for them. That's what heals.
that's right.
When we spend some time connecting with however you see the spiritual light, you can just call it love.
Yeah,
And to
yeah.
connect with that and to say that's really what's going to heal, because this
Mm-hmm.
other stuff in some way isn't real. It's
Right.
real, but in some way it wasn't about me. I had parents that were brutal. That wasn't
Mm-hmm.
about me.
Mm-hmm. 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 Absolutely. Yeah. But to a certain degree, you chose the parents, huh?
And you say, what did I get out of this?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
people say.
You
It's
chose
a
the
very
parents.
complex
So
thing.
what's the purpose of that?
Yeah. Now, another one that's cool in there is that as you work on yourself, you realize that everybody else had those same kind of traumas.
Mm-hmm.
And that because we recognize it in ourselves, that allows us to be compassionate toward others.
Mm-hmm.
Because that
Totally.
person isn't acting out of meanness, he's acting out of his hurts.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. What do you feel are some of the attributes that you have learned through these experiences in staying with this purpose of expanding the love and nudging people to go through their own journey and healing the hurts and kissing their own boo-boos, if you will?
Yeah.
Like, what were the attributes that you learned that filled your armor, if you will, to get you through, be it a career, a location, an environment, a relationship? What were those for you?
It's a great question, and it's really very deep and very intense.
Let's do it.
I had various stages.
Uh,
One was I met someone that I read, a guy named Rudolf Steiner, who
mm,
was a seer in the early 1900s, and
mm,
he spoke about the world from a practical as well as a spiritual point of view.
yeah,
And through reading him, I got to appreciate that the spiritual world is real. And that gave me a
yeah,
lot of confidence. And then there was a point in my life where I said, if I'm connected to love, And we all are. And
Mhm.
how do I know that? Well, there's several ways, but one simple way is suppose you're sitting on a bench
Mhm.
and there's a stranger next to you, a little old lady, and
Mhm.
she drops her package on the ground. You
Right.
would bend and pick it up.
Yeah. Instinct.
That's a compassionate move. And
Mhm. Mhm.
compassion is love made practical.
Yeah.
You didn't say, wait a second, before I can act that way, I have to go and get my compassion. I have to go to my car. I left my compassion in the car.
Right.
It's not like
Right.
that. Compassion is in us. So we
Yeah.
can build it, we can nourish it. Just the way we can learn how to speak a foreign language, we can learn how to develop our compassion and develop our sense of love for others and caring.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
yeah.
So that is the attribute that you have learned over the
Well, then
years
I took
that.
another test. I said to myself, and this was my being far out, but I had to. I
Uh-huh.
looked at my life and I'd hear people say things work out for the best. And they talk about things like synchronicity.
Mhm.
And I had incredible number of situations where things worked out in ways I couldn't dream of.
Mm.
In the very way I got into medicine, I was a very lackluster student as a child. I never did schoolwork. I didn't read a book from
Mm.
the time I was 12.
Oh my gosh.
I never
Okay.
studied for a test. The only paper I wrote was a three-page paper on the movie King Kong, and that was in college, and I handed it in.
Okay. Okay.
And so I did a couple of things after I was a school teacher. Then I decided to go to Alaska to work in this logging camp. Then I thought business would be interesting, and that could only be in Manhattan because I was a New Yorker.
Okay. Yes.
And then one day during lunch, I was perfectly content at an apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan and this job. And I was reading the newspaper, and an ad fell out of the newspaper, and
Mm.
described a pre-med program at Columbia University
Mm.
for college graduates who never took the math and science courses you need for medical school.
Okay.
While I read that, and it just struck me, it fell onto my lap and grabbed my attention. And obviously, out of what I said, I never thought about being a physician. And plus, my parents never took me to a doctor. And I didn't know anybody
Really?
who's a doctor, so I didn't know anything about being a doctor.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So while I'm looking at this ad, an image came to mind of somebody having a heart attack.
Okay.
And this person was probably in his late 40s. And I imagined that he'd want to have a good physician to take care of his heart disease.
Mm.
But then I also imagined that he'd have lots of questions about his life.
Mm.
What do I do with myself? What does this mean for me? What do I tell
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
family and friends? How do I go on? And I thought he wouldn't seek a psychiatrist for those answers. He
Mm.
would talk to the same person who was treating his heart.
Right.
And so I said, wow, being a physician is intellectually challenging and it's interpersonally rich. But
Okay.
that's it. I said, that's what I'm going to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Uh,
so my life has constantly led me like that. So the reason I say that at one point I said to myself, is this idea true? Is
mm.
the idea that there's meaning in life? Because I said love is always with me. It's like if there's compassion's
Mm.
with me, love's with me, and love is filled with wisdom. If you
Mhm.
care about your dog, you treat them with wisdom.
Yes.
You don't just treat them the way you want to, you treat what the dog needs.
Mhm.
So love and wisdom are two sides of the same thing. So I said, if love is with me, is wisdom with me?
Mhm.
Means, am I always in the right place?
Right.
So I saw that in a lot of situations, and then I tested it. So I decided for 2 years I would live as if everything that happened in every situation is exactly right for me.
Mhm.
And I did that for 2 years.
Yes.
And and I thought if I discovered that my thinking was off center, I would notice it. It wouldn't be a good plan.
Yeah. Okay.
So I realized it absolutely stood every test I could give it. And that's how I live my life now.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And what an experience from an experiment of let's just try it and see what happens. Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
it didn't work, okay, it doesn't work. But then I could say, is this synchronicity thing accurate? And then I
Mhm.
said, if you ever feel a time in your life where you think something higher was working there,
Mhm.
it really happened that some kind of miracle happened.
Mhm. Mhm.
If it happened in one setting, it has to be the case in every setting.
That's right.
We just have to look for it and open
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah. It's the awareness of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that makes life interesting to say, okay, so what's the wisdom here? What should I do here?
So, based on what you started the conversation with, as we started the conversation, what do you feel is the awareness that is needed for this juncture of, be it the medical profession, be it other pediatricians, be it the schooling, the medical schooling system, which I think is a whole different conversation. But what's your take on the next trajectory, if you will, of that whole system?
That thinking with the heart is as important and equal to thinking with the intellect.
Mhm,
We should always think, imagine you thought with your heart and you were building a workplace. You wouldn't have
mhm,
people sitting in little square cubicles with no window.
mhm,
There's
mhm.
nothing human about that.
Right,
We wouldn't be that the way we work if we thought, how would we do this in a human kind of a way?
right.
And
Yeah,
and then we have the intellect to check our reasoning.
yeah.
So let's say, suppose I saw somebody drowning and they were floating down a river. My heart
Mm,
might go out to them, but my intellect would say, no, if you do it that way, you're going to get caught in that current and you'll die too.
yeah.
So we have to use our intellect as well as our hearts. When we balance those, then we're full human beings.
Mhm, mhm. How has your life changed based on this new outlook on life that you have? I call it new because I think, when you retire and you make big life decisions, it strips you of perhaps the previous titles and responsibilities from the past, but it gives you an opportunity to really step into a new thinking, a new thought process, a new beingness.
Yeah. So I was
How has
clear,
that changed your life?
so I was clear I wanted to retire to do this work.
Hmm.
So the first 2 years have been like being in hibernation. It's like because I had to do all this work. And
Okay.
now I think it's just about now it's budding time and soon it's going to blossom. And I have no idea how it's going to go. It's going to be so
Yeah.
interesting to be able to chat with you like this. It's so
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And how does that change the relationships you have with people? So I know your family, so you've got daughters, right? So has that shifted the relationship with your daughters and your colleagues, your peers, and other people in your life? How has it shifted it since
Well,
you've stepped into this role in this
I
space?
always think I can be more loving. And the
Mm,
part that happened in medicine that was really very interesting that relates to this is before I would go into a room with a patient, I would take a look at their chart, learn their history, and then I would think about what do I have to offer them? If they're having a problem with headaches, what do I want to talk to them about? Or
mm,
suppose they have a 4 month old. What developmental things do I want to talk to them about that would just be interesting? Like how do I make this visit so they think that was a great visit? So
mm,
now if I go to say a friend's house, I can kind of look at our chart. I can say, what can I do here that can bring something? Like there are topics I should bring up, but there are issues we should have. And how do I serve them in a certain way? It doesn't mean I lose
mm.
myself, but how do I make the most of this situation? And then one
Yeah.
thing I do before important times is I close my eyes and just ask love to join me.
Mm. How
It's
beautiful.
unbelievable how that, and especially in a tough situation. So before our podcast today, I
Yeah.
listened to your podcast. I listened to an
Mm,
interview with you, thought about various things that made me think of. And I said, okay, love, just be with me.
mm.
And then I live life.
Mm, she is. Yeah.
And I'm not perfect. I do the best I can, but that's we can
Yeah.
all do. We can just be
That's
human
right.
beings.
That's right. And that was going to be my other question of curiosity of, are there any other practices that you have that keep you in your center? Because perhaps you hear from other people who say, "Oh, Ron, you can't do that. That's too big of a move." Or, "Why are you writing a book at this time of your life? Like, what are you doing?" So you'll get those naysayers or all those people who are not your cheerleaders. How do you stay on your own center and saying, yes, so you can welcome the love to come in
Well,
and move you
there are two
forward in that
things. There were
trajectory.
two things.
Hmm.
One is for really important decisions in my life, like when
Hmm.
I decided to go to medical school, like when I decided to leave teaching, and go to Alaska.
Yeah.
I developed the idea and didn't tell anybody else,
Ah,
because I knew they'd be the naysayers and so on. I had to figure out what I wanted to do. It didn't affect
right.
anybody else, but it was just my decision.
Mhm.
Nobody could see it from my standpoint.
Right. Okay.
And
Okay.
the second part that I suggest for everyone that I find very helpful, I do two things, one in the morning and one at night.
Mm,
Before I go to sleep at night, while I'm lying in bed, first thing I'll do is I'll try to fill myself with love.
mm,
And that can be by experiencing love at any time you felt loved. It can even be while you were petting your cat.
mhm.
To hold that feeling and eventually over time drop the situation that brought it.
Right.
Or if there's a religious or spiritual thing you read or a
Yeah.
prayer you like, to hold the feeling of what that prayer gives you
Yes.
and then fill yourself with that.
Yeah.
Then what I do is that this is in the morning. So then what I'll do in
Mm.
the morning is I review my life in 10 minutes in three different ways. One, I
Okay.
it's kind of like people practice and visualize anything. If you're going to play a football game against a team, you practice and develop a game plan.
That's right.
So I do it in three ways. The first one I do is I do a quick overview of what's happening.
Right.
After I get out of bed, I'm gonna have breakfast with the kids, and then I go to work, and then we have a meeting at lunch, and then I'm going to the gym and so on.
Mhm.
Then I do it in a more specific way. So my wife is going to work early, so I'm gonna have the kids at breakfast, and we have bagels, and we have some oatmeal I'm gonna make, and then I'm gonna drive them to school, and I'm gonna save my email for after I drop them off. So I'm not looking at my emails or my message till I drop them off, and then I can go through my whole day.
Yeah.
And then I do a third one. And the third
Wow.
one is how do I want to be in those situations?
Mm,
I'll think, okay, what's the mood I want to create at breakfast? And
mm,
what's the mood I want to create when I'm, whenever? Or is there something that I want to say to one of my office mates that I think would be helpful?
mm.
And then where this really fits in, suppose it turns out that I was meeting my ex at our kids' soccer game and she was going to be there with her new partner.
Mm,
So I have to say, okay, how do I want to do this? I don't want to get triggered. I want to be able to be with them so the kids don't notice anything. And I
yeah.
might think about how I do that.
Right.
And then I live my day.
Wow.
And then I think at the end of the day, then I do a quick one before I close my eyes, before I go to sleep. I think, okay, let me do a quick one. I'll start from where I am now and go back to the morning. And I'll say, how did I do with that soccer game? Did I get triggered? Did I do it the way I wanted? And how did I do with such and such, this mood and this idea of holding on my emails? Did that work? Then so I'll go through the day and see how it went. And if we want to be good at anything, we do that process. If you were making a presentation at work, you would do that.
Yeah.
So why don't we do that with our lives?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and and then you become better at it and you become yourself. That's really what the
Yeah.
key is.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that analogy.
Yeah. The one other thing you can do is when even if you're stressful, when you go through the day, you see, oh, I can get through everything.
Yeah.
Or you realize, oh no, I should have said no to her because I didn't really have time for that. I have to remember that the next
Sure.
time.
Sure. 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 My curiosity is you mapped out three things, three versions of yourself in the morning of how your day is going to unfold. Have you ever reflected at nighttime and found that it was a fourth version?
What's the fourth version?
Was there a fourth version?
I'm not sure what you mean by a fourth version.
So you talked about there are three versions of you of how this day is going to unfold. And then at the nighttime, you reflect and say, okay, this is how that unfolded, this is how that unfolded, and this is how that unfolded. There's still only the three versions.
You gave me a new
Mm,
one. The other one
yeah.
that I do is I also look for the miracles that happen during the day.
Okay.
Miracles are the small things that were just incredible the way it worked out. Like
Yeah.
being able to have this wonderful conversation with you, like out of the whole blue of the world. Here it is, I can have
Mm,
this wonderful conversation with you. That's
yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
I'll also
Yeah.
look for the miracles that happen. And the miracles can be something like the other day I was putting my sweatshirt into the laundry.
Mhm.
And as I put it into the laundry, my hand bumped against my pocket of the sweatshirt and my wallet was in there.
Oh,
I'd put it in there earlier that morning. Had I not bumped into it, I would have thrown it in the wash.
you'd have laundered your wallet.
And I feel like I just get help. I see that as being helped, and I get help
Yeah.
like that all the time. And so I
Yeah.
would say thank you.
That's right. When we open ourselves up to it, we become more receptive, right? And my nudge there was the fourth version because sometimes when we allow those miracles to come in, when we allow those synchronicities and the magic is what I call of life to come through, it it opens another version of us, but it opens the day as a very different experience that we could even project. Like in the morning, the projection of I want this to happen and this to happen and this to unfold this way and this to unfold this way. But at the end of the day, when we put magic in the mix, it didn't even touch any of those three versions that we had. So I
Yeah.
think that is, to me, the magic and the beauty of
Yeah.
be it calling in love, but leaving a little something for something bigger and greater beyond you and I that's really navigating our lives. And we're just the little Muppet,
Yeah.
kind of
I was just going to use that
marionetting on the
analogy.
strings.
Yeah, like with the marionette. Exactly. I was just going to use that
Mhm.
analogy, and to be able to say thank you to that and to be open to that, because it's the most loving
It is.
marionetteer,
It
puppeteer.
is. It is.
Yeah.
And that we get to do this on this beautiful planet called Mother Earth. And how gorgeous is she? So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a gift in itself.
And then if you imagine that you're that being and you have this person who really wants to work out of love and appreciate love, what a
Mhm.
nice connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can partner with you. Now,
Yeah.
the mystery is that magic is there whether we look for it or think about it or not.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it makes life so much richer if we appreciate it.
Yeah. And we get to that when we get through the other stuff.
Yeah.
And the other stuff is always going to be there, but it's how fast we're going to get through it. Are we going to spend a day through it? Are we going to spend a week through it? Are we going to spend a decade through an emotion? Or we're
Yeah.
going to spend 95 years of it like your mother did?
Yeah. And
Or can we
the one
just
that's interesting
get
with these,
through it?
yeah. And the
And we,
challenges make us real. So if you were a musician,
mm,
you would want to play complex pieces, and the better you got, the more complex the pieces. If you were
that's
an
right.
athlete, you want to face the toughest competition.
Yeah.
So in life, life gives us
Yeah.
challenges.
Yeah. They do. At the
And that's
beginning, with that analogy, I'm gonna string this as at the beginning it feels very difficult. But I think and I believe and I do, once we clear out the clutter of those challenges and move them out of our sphere, and we strengthen how to become more aware here and more aware here, navigating life becomes easier, it becomes smoother because we don't have all that emotional baggage that we're having to sift through every single day.
yeah. And I didn't mean to make it bad, but
No, I
suppose
understood.
you're a musician and you want to learn to play a Beethoven piece.
Right.
Really
Yeah.
work at it and you
Yeah.
enjoy it. It's great
I,
stuff.
yeah.
And you
I
grow
understood.
from
It is. It is. It is. And that's part of life. But, and the magic here that I think humans forget is we all signed up for it. Every single soul on this planet signed up for the experiences that they are going through.
it. Yeah. Yeah. And when you think there are the physical ones, of course
Mhm.
we're not good at all of those. In my life, I have to be a cook, I have to be a dad, I have to be a bill payer, I have to be somebody who jogs, all those things. The part that we forget is we can't define ourselves by how we do it those,
Mhm.
because I might be good at some and not good at others. And then there's the other part of connecting with the love that's given to me, not because of anything, but just because I exist.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's forgiving ourselves if we're not great in the practical world and having the confidence to know that that's just where we should be.
yeah.
And on the other hand, to let love in.
Let it in. Also, oh my God, we're just continuing this. Um, Also to the point of if we weren't loved as energetic beings, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
We're a fragment of the universe and all. And that is love. So we wouldn't be here if we didn't have it.
Yeah. I think Emerson said something about how the world is love made visible.
Oh, I like that. Very good. We could continue this conversation so much longer on. What a delight. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your stories, which I think are the best parts often when I get to have these conversations with individuals. I'm honored and I'm deeply grateful for you sharing. So thank you for spending your time with me
I'm
and
so
sharing.
glad you took whatever leap it was to invite me. And again, so my website is biggerhearted.com.
Yep,
And the book, and you can find the book and all the other stuff at the website. So it's bigger.
perfect. And we'll put all those details in the show notes so people can find them too as well. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ron.
So very nice. Lots of love. Be well.
You too. I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.